I have Digimon and Christmas things. They celebrate Christmas in Digimon at one point in time. In the second season, actually. Okay, so that is not the essence of this video. This video is actually going to be about the portals and the gates that the Digidestined use to go back and forth between the real world and digital world throughout the course of the Digimon Adventures series. So again, that'll be Digimon Adventures, Digimon Adventures 2.0, Digimon Adventures Try, and then Digimon The Last Evolution. Digimon Adventure The Last Evolution. I'm trying to hit all the major ones that they tend to use, or all the ones that tend to be big plot points to a degree. Now, the gates or the portals, they're usually referred to as gates, but sometimes they look more like portals, in my opinion, or giant rips in the fabric of the universe also applies. So for the most part, the digital gate is a program that can be run from most PCs to allow easy passage between the real world and the digital world. That is mostly what ends up happening in Season 2. It's those types of ones, whereas throughout the original season, throughout the first season, most of the portals tend to just be kind of random where they are, or there's something that someone does in order to create it, or there's like an outside force that's done. So the first and the most major portal that is in Digimon in the original series is the Heightened Terrace portal, or Heightened Terrace gate. Now, this is the gate that we get to see or reference quite a bit in the first part of the movie that they had, the Digimon movie, and then also in the parts of the episodes where we get flashbacks to how the Digidestined were chosen to be Digidestined. There's the egg that has, of course, Koromon in it that comes through for Tai and Kari, and then that comes through just like a portal that comes out of their computer. They don't actually get sucked in, but the egg comes through the portal. And on the other side of the world in America, Willis is also having a Digi-egg pop through the computer as well, and that hatches into Kokomon and Terriermon. And then he actually gets to keep them, of course. And then, of course, also what ends up happening in regards to connected to the Heightened Terrace portal for that is also the portal that Parrotmon comes out of. The giant Digi-egg that Parrotmon hatches from kind of just like appears in the sky and then cracks open and then out pops Parrotmon. And then, of course, that results in the giant battle between the Red Greymon and Parrotmon. And by the end of that battle, you know, they're kind of either destroy each other or they both kind of just, you know, get knocked out or whatever, and then they're transported back to the digital world. And of course, during this incident, that is when the homeostasis and the agents that are Jedi's group kind of like look over the Digidestined, these children, and figure out which ones they're going to use, which is, of course, when the original 8 are chosen. The next portal that, of course, the Digidestined end up dealing with is the portal that is the summer camp portal, which, in regards to that, the summer camp portal is a lot more of this random thing that happens. In the first episode of Digimon, it like randomly starts snowing in the middle of summer, and I've never been to Japan. I don't know if this is normal thing that happens, but I highly doubt that. But it like snowed in the middle of summer, and then like all the electrical, devices are like malfunctioning. Like Izzy's computer is malfunctioning, his phone is malfunctioning, nothing is working right. And then this aurora starts to appear in the sky, and it looks a lot like the aurora borealis, and I think even in the English dub that's what they call it. Now, I don't know if there's any parts of Japan beyond like the extremely far north that would actually be able to see the aurora borealis, but I'm not sure. But of course what ends up happening is, that's when all of the Digivices, come raining down out of the sky, and like they just kind of like land in front of each of the Digidestined, and then like float up out of the ground, and then they each get like one of the Digivices. And then there's this giant wave that like washes over them and like swallows them up. And then we get the moment where it's like the wave shifts into going from this wave into like data, into like them transported. And then of course that's how they end up in the digital world for the first time. And like they don't know exactly how they got there. That gate does get used again, obviously. But they don't understand exactly how they got in the digital world. And then the next time that there's like a gate or a warp hole that opens up, or a wormhole or a warp hole, is when Edamon is destroyed. During the battle with Datamon and Edamon, when Greymon digivolves into Middle Greymon for the first time, he destroys Edamon, which at this point in time he's been he combined himself with his like dark network, and then Greymon Middle Greymon attacks him, and then he kind of just gets warped and he gets turned into like this warp hole. And Tai and War Greymon or Metal Greymon. I keep saying War and Metal Greymon. Metal Greymon gets sucked through the wormhole, this warp hole, and they land back in the real world. And, Tai is very confused by this, and he just lands in the middle of, where he lives. And I'm not even going to get started on the different provinces that the Digidestined lives in, because don't ask me. I don't know. But they, Tai and Agumon end up back in the real world, and then the other Digidestined, they don't know where Tai went. End result of what happens with Edamon is in, several long amount of time later via digital world time frame, he does end up coming back because he turns into Metal Edamon, and I went over that in his video. But then what happens is, Tai and Agumon are returned to the real world, and then, they go back to their house, they see Kari. Tai kind of thinks that maybe he had a fever dream, but then Koromon is still there, so it wasn't a fever dream, and Kari can see him, so he's not hallucinating. And we get all of that, and then Tai is able to see these Digimon that start to appear around the city. And they're physically causing damage to things, but Tai and Kari and Koromon are the only ones that can see them. And there's a Drillmon, and there's a Tyrannomon, I think. And there's Ogremon pops up, and Tai and Kari and Agumon and Koromon can see them, and Agumon even kind of fights against the Ogremon that pops up. But Tai realizes that he of course has to go back to the digital world, and he does, and he says goodbye to Kari. And whatever damage had been done is kind of gone. I don't exactly know if we get an exact answer for that, but he left Kari sitting out on the street, so hopefully Kari just well, my brother got sucked into a portal in the sky along with his pink blob thing that turned into a yellow lizard after fighting a monster, and the rubble that was all around me is now gone. I'm gonna go back home now. It's just Kari goes back home. And, that's when Tai gets sucked back into the digital world, and then, he has to go around and he has to, help find, the other Digidestined and everything, and that's when they're all, getting their crest activated and, overcoming things and everything. And then the next gate that we deal with is Myotismon's, card gate, or star card gate, whatever you want to refer to it as. I don't remember if it has an exact name in the series, but I just kind of refer to it as the card gate or the card star gate, because it's this giant medieval looking door, and there's this stand or altar looking thing that has carvings on it, that has stars across the top, and then it has different symbols and everything, and it makes a grid. And there are these 10 cards, and you're supposed to put 10 cards into the correct order on the, on the thing. And, Myotismon has the cards, and he sets all the cards correctly onto the stand altar type thing. And then him and all of his forces go through. Now you'll notice it would be a grid of 9, and there's 10 cards. I'll get to that in a minute. And they go through, him and Godamon and the, Devimon and the rest of his, nightmare soldiers, Army of Darkness, whatever his were called. They go through the portal and go into the real world. And then that's when the kids go and then speak to Jedi, because the gate closed behind them and they can't get through. Or gate closed behind Myotismon and his group, and the Digidestined can't get through, so now they need to get back to the real world. And, they go and see Jedi, and then Jedi gives them these cards again, and he tells them that, okay, there's the gate that you saw, it does open, these are the cards that you can use to open it. And they look over them, and Tai makes the comment of, well, we'll just try them in however many patterns we need to until we get home. And Jedi just grabs Tai, kind of strangles him a little bit. And it's just you can't do that. If you put the cards on in the wrong order, or you mess them up, or use the wrong cards or whatever, then you could go through the portal and you and your Digimon could like swap skins. And we get this like little diagram of this where it's like Mimi and Palmon like walk through the portal and then come back out and then like they've like mismatched stuff. And like Mimi gets like, no, I don't want to turn into a plant. And Palmon's like, you don't think I'm pretty? And Mimi's like, no, that's not what it is. I don't want to be a plant. And then, of course, they return to Myotismon's castle because that's where the portal is, or where the gate is. And they figure out the fact that the gate is set up for the stars across the top represent. So it's the I can never remember exactly what order it goes in, but it's like there are 4 rookie cards, 3 champion cards, and 3 ultimate cards. And the 4 rookies, one of them is a fake. And they have to figure out which one is the fake, and it's either Agumon's or one of the other ones. And Tai is the one that has to make the decision, and Tai picks Agumon's card as the fake, just as like a 50-50 shot. It's like, I got a 50-50 shot here, one gets us home, the other one, I guess, switches our skin with our Digimon, and I become a dragon. And, they go through and they set the cards up the correct way. It's like there's the 3 different types of like data, virus, and vaccine type Digimon, and then there's like the champion or rookie, champion, and ultimate. And you have to get them in the right order. And like these are all Digimon that they've interacted with over the course of the series, so it's like they're able to figure that out in what order the cards have to go. And then that's when they end up back in the real world and they return to the summer camp. The kind of next portal-ish type thing that they end up dealing with is when they return to the digital world after they have defeated Malamyotismon, or not Malamyotismon, after they've defeated Venomyotismon. That's when the digital world starts to appear in the sky as like the rips in the sky, and these kind of like rainbow teleportation thing like appears, and that's where the Digidestined, and that's when not all 8 of them, with Kari there, get to go and return to the digital world. So it's like they're like lifted into the digital world. And that's the way that they get there for that time. So that's the second time that they get to the digital world. And then when they go home, after they've defeated, all the Dark Masters and then Apocalypse and everything, then, Jedi does the whole thing of like, oh, well, yeah, now the real world and your world have been like, the real world and digital world are like synced up in time. And, once the gate closes and it's like closed for like an indeterminate amount of time. We don't know how long it'll be closed for, but you guys can't stay here or else you might be trapped here. And of course, this is, I just refer to this as the train car gate. Because I have an obsession with this train car for some reason. That it's just like, where did you get this train car from, Jedi? Why? And like the train car pops up a lot, in all honesty. It's like it's there at the, it's where they spend their first night in the digital world. It's where they spend, it's how they, ride back on the train after they all say goodbye to their Digimon and everything. And then, it pops up again. I don't remember exactly what, but I know it pops up again in like Digimon Last Evolution. It pops up there as like a symbol there, and like they used it in like some of the promo art for Digimon Adventures Try with like all the kids sitting on top of it. But like I may just do a video about that train car at some point in time. I don't know. We'll see. I could try. But then the next time that they end up having to deal with some form of a portal is during the battle with I know the name. Caramon. I know this name. It's when Omnimon appears for the first time. Why am I having a hard time remembering this name? Yes, I'm leaving this in. Diaboromon. Sorry. It's just like, no. Diaboromon. That's right. During the battle with Diaboromon, when Tai and Matt get like sucked into their respective computers that they're using, they become digital again and they're reunited with, Agumon and Goblimon. And then that's when, they DNA digivolve and they turn into Omnimon. And it's like they don't actually go into the digital world, they just kind of go into the internet itself. So it's a bit of a different thing. And then they obviously end up back in the real world somehow. But then the next one is when they have to return to the digital world to like return their crest to give up their crests and everything, so that way the digital world can be like restored. And like Genai just like brings them in, and I'm assuming they're not there very long, but they're reunited with their Digimon, and then they give up their crest so that way the digital world can be restored. There's not really too much other stuff. I know that throughout the course of like some of the audio dramas that they did that kind of take place between the end of season 1 and the beginning of season 2, there's like some different moments where like things like leak through where like Tai is like doesn't want to do soccer anymore, but then he like hears Agumon's voice calling out to him and like encouraging him to keep doing soccer. And there's like a few other bits I think that happen. But the next major thing is in the beginning of Digimon Adventures 2.0, when Tai somehow ends up back in the digital world. Agumon, this is when they're having to deal with the Digimon Emperor, and this is when we're introduced to the Digimon Emperor for the first time. And like Tai somehow ends up in the digital world. And then he ends up, sending a message to Izzy. And then Izzy, of course, shows up at the middle school or the elementary school where like Kari and TK are. And then, this is when we meet Yoli and Davis and Cody and everything like that. And when like their Digivices pop out of the computer. And then for most of the rest of the season, to get to and from the digital world, they just basically use these new constant kind of like digital gates that are like this permanent program that's kind of accessible on most of the computers that they come across. They use it on a lot of the computers are in like the computer lab at their school, and like they're able to Ken can access it from his home. There's several others that they're able to access from like Izzy's computer from his home, and a few others. So we do see that. And via meddling that Ken did as the Digimon Emperor, it can only be accessed for quite a while by the D3s. And then at some point in time, then it is better able to be accessed by just the Digivices because Mimi is able to access it from America. Because she, travels to and from the digital world a couple of times without having one of the younger Digi-Destined with her. And then we have kind of the Dark Ocean Gate type thing, because when Kari gets sucked into the Dark Ocean world, she's just kind of is like phased into there. She's like called to there, like phases out from the real world into the Dark Ocean world. And then, Davis tries to go to the digital world, but it won't let him in because that's not where Kari is. And, the gate kind of seems to be able to determine when it wants someone to come in and when it doesn't, which is kind of interesting. And then what happens with Kari is that when she's in the Dark Ocean world, at one point she's, like calling out for help for like TK and Gatomon and everything. And like she kind of just like her need for help, or her light itself kind of like opens a portal, opens a gate itself that TK and Patamon and Gatomon see, and like they literally like jump through the portal through the portal into the Dark Ocean world, and then they're able to save Kari and everything, and then they return to the real world. Then there's the second Dark Ocean thing that kind of happens when Yoli and Ken and Kari end up getting transported to the Dark Ocean world again, when they're looking for Gatomon's tail ring, after Ken is now their friend. And they end up getting back out of it and everything, but it's kind of like they're in like this, they're not like they didn't like actually go through a portal or go through a gate. It's just like this kind of like shift that like just affected them. So that's a little bit of a different thing. And then there are the Kyoto warps that I refer to as, and I mentioned these before. When Yoli is in Kyoto on like her class trip and everything, because that's something that they do in Japan apparently, is that every year like certain classes, like a certain grade or something like that, go and do like a trip to Japan or Kyoto in Japan, because there's like shrines all over the place. I went over this already in a different video. But what ends up happening is during the same time frame in the digital world, Black Lord Greymon has been destroying all of the Destiny Stones, and he destroys one of the Destiny Stones, and then it makes this like warp in like the boundaries of the digital world, which is kind of, Orukenimon and Mamimon want this, but it like warps Black Lord Greymon into the real world along with all of these like kind of shadow-ish looking Digimon that are behind him. and you can't quite tell what any of them are until they like, you know, kind of like decide that, oh, I want to go and attack something, so they go and attack something. And like, you know, Blackboard Greymon isn't like actually physically there. Yoli can see him because she's a Digidestined, and like computer equipment or like camera equipment seems to be able to pick them up, because this is where Yoli runs into Sora's dad and then Jim's brother Joe. Sorry, Joe's brother Jim. I wanted Jim to be a Digidestined. He would have been a good Digidestined. But what ended up happening is, you know, Yoli ends up, you know, having to, you know, deal with some of them, and then, you know, they just kind of like, I guess the boundary stabilizes itself, and then Blackboard Greymon just kind of vanishes again, and then he goes back into the digital world. Whether or not Blackboard Greymon actually noticed that he was like popped into the real world is left up for debate. I don't know if we ever get an answer as to whether or not he knows that. Or even if he did, I don't really think that he cared, because the real world isn't really anything of all that interest to him. At this point in time, he's more just focused on trying to, you know, destroy the Destiny Stones to summon a Zulongmon, which of course happens as I went over. But then the other one is when, the next one is when, like, I told him the round the world gates, because when, at Christmas time, Christmas, at Christmas time, on, you know, the Digimon World Tour episodes, there's, you know, all these different digital gates that are opening up all over the world, and, you know, sending Digimon out and then causing problems, because the Digimon don't understand what are happening, and, you know, they don't understand what's happening, and then, you know, the Digidestined have to go off and like send them all back, and, you know, that's what happens there. And then there's the third time that the Dark Ocean portal or the Dark Ocean gate is used, and this is when they have to try to, when they're dealing with Daemon, and, you know, they, you know, force open this portal that's going to send him into the digital world, and he's like, oh, I can just get out of the digital world, it's not that big of a deal, give me a short amount of time and I'll be back. You know, I'm strong enough that that's not an issue. But then, you know, Ken is like, we have to try to trap him in the Dark Ocean. And then that's when, you know, Ken has to, you know, tap into his darkness and everything that he's kind of like been suppressing for the past several months, since he was no longer the Digimon Emperor, of course. And he, you know, him and the others, you know, are able to, you know, force open this Dark Ocean portal and like send Daemon into there. Whether or not Daemon ever got out of there is left up for debate, because we don't ever see Daemon again, as far as I'm aware. We see other Daemon later on down the line in like other digital worlds, but we don't see this specific Daemon again. But, you know, they have to force open that portal and everything. And then there's like the mystery portal that like Blackboard Greymon like pops out of when he like arrives in the real world to go and try to deal with Oikawa. He like just kind of like pops out of the sky, and like shows up and tries to attack Oikawa. And then the card gate kind of part 2, which also connects back to Blackboard Greymon, is when Blackboard Greymon dies, when he's attacked by Oikawa and he dies. And what he does is he sacrifices his data in order to seal the gate that's the Heightened View Terrace gate. And that then would help prevent Oikawa, being possessed by Myotismon, from being able to get back into the digital world. Because if he returns to the digital world, then he'll just get stronger. So Blackboard Greymon, you know, dies, and he, you know, in his last, you know, act, you know, he, you know, sacrifices his data in order to make this seal over the gate, and it works. And the backlash of this is that Oikawa does not know that Blackboard Greymon did this, so he doesn't know that the gate's been closed. And what happens is he has told all of the Dark Spore children to meet him at like this Heightened View Terrace bridge, and the other Digidestined are there watching them and everything. And it's like, but they don't know that Blackboard Greymon sealed the gate. No, they don't. And, you know, Oikawa has like all of the children there, and he has them like start chanting and everything, which is just creepy and everything. They're like, let's all go to the digital world. And it's just like, that's just kind of disturbing. And what ends up happening is he has a computerized data version, or a computer program version of the Stargate, which, given the fact that Myotismon probably spent quite a bit of time studying the Stargate in order to give him the ability to go into the real world to begin with, and he's, you know, had been building that plan for so long, he would know quite a few of the details about the gate. But he makes a mistake. So there's two things that work against him. One, Blackboard Greymon sealed the Heightened Terrace gate, so they can't get in anyway that way. Two, Myotismon, via his like whispering in Oikawa's ear, Oikawa like puts the wrong card in the slot. He uses Agumon's card, which is actually the fake card, as opposed to the real card that I think was Gomamon's card, if I remember correctly, from like the original gate. But he uses the wrong card, and then it opens up, and that's when they end up in like the dream world, the twisted dream world. And then there is kind of like another gate / rip in the fabric of time and space that opens up, because when the Digidestin in the dream world are fighting against Malamyotismon, they like, there's like so many major attacks that they use all on him at once, and he like gets blasted literally through he gets hit so hard by these attacks that he gets blasted through the wall of the dream world into the digital world. And like we see like this little like literal like rip in space. There's literally like, this is where the dream world was, this is where the digital world is, and it's like, okay, there's this giant rip there. And they end up having to, as soon as the Digidestin walk through it and they're back in the real world, all of the Digimon that it was created by like the dream energy are like gone. They're just left with their regular fully evolved versions of their DNA Digivolved Digimon. And then the next kind of portal gate type thing that happens is when Tai and the rest of the older kids make their way back to the summer camp, and they have their families and they have the families of the other younger Digidestin there with them. And they're like, okay, well, this is the first place that we ever went to the digital world, so maybe that's a good sign. And we just have to figure out a way to get through, get the portal to open for us to go through. And, it's not like, Tai just like holds his Digivice up to the, sky, and it doesn't do anything. And I think of the English dub, he's like, Digiport open, please. I guess her parents were wrong. That's not the magic word. And like, that doesn't work. But then all over the world, when Malamyotismon is like covering the world in his darkness from the digital world, because literally from the digital world, you can look up and see the real world in the sky. And he's like, cloaking it in his darkness. This is when, Izzy's like, oh, there's like so many gates opening up all around the world. And it's like Mimi and all the other, Digimon World Tour kids all over the world that are like, opening up the gates, calling out to their Digimon. And of course, this is when they're literally like pulled from Earth to the digital world by their bonds with their Digimon, which is literally just like, I'm standing on the street in the middle of New York City, holding this Digivice up to the sky. I'm going to call the name of my Digimon out, or like wherever you are around the world. I'm going to call the name of my Digimon out, and then I'm going to get like literally pulled from Earth to the digital world. And, and that's when they all arrive. And then of course you're able to defeat Malamyotismon in that time frame. There's a few other kind of portal-ish type situations that happen kind of like just like in between, and these kind of just more fall with the Revenge of Diaboromon movie. And it's just like, Tai and Matt and then Karyatike end up going into the internet to go and try to fight Diaboromon, but also all of these Kuromon, the little tiny versions, the little like the in training versions, or like the baby versions of what turn into Diaboromon, keep popping out of people's phones and computers and TV screens and everything like that. So it's like there's just like little mini gates that open up, and like those end up getting dealt with. Moving on to Digimon Adventure Tri, there's not really that many like specific portals. Throughout the course of the specials that they did, there are multiple portals that open up. Like there's ones that open up that like Kuwagamon pops out of, and then other portals that open up that like Ogremon comes out of, and then several other things where the Digimon, obviously the Digidestined Digimon like pop up into the real world as well, and those involve like a portal opened up somewhere and then they were able to come through. And Tai and the others are like kind of like dealing with like all these portals that are opening up, and there's like the Himakawa and Nishijima are like studying the portals and everything like that. And so we see the portals opening up all over the place. And, so you can go to and from the digital world that way. And, that's kind of how they just go back and forth. Or that's how the Digimon keep popping up. The infected Digimon keep popping up. And then after the reboot, the Digidestined kind of have to like force open a gate. And this is when they use, all of their Digivices together. And when, this is after the reboot has happened, and like their Digimon have been, back in the digital world, and rebooted and everything. And they go back, and they're able to kind of use honestly, it looks like Ken's Digivice, but they're able to like go to the digital world again, and that's when they see their Digimon. And then at one point, after they've been reunited with their Digimon, they're like broken up into different places again, like random places all over the digital world again. And then like literally while they're running around the digital world, once they're all reunited again, they keep falling through different portals all over the place. And Kari makes the equation, or equates it out to, the digital world thinks of us as an infection right now because of the fact that we're humans, and it wants to get rid of us. Technically, she's not wrong in that regard. But then eventually they end up back in the real world through, different portals, and then they end up back in the digital world through different portals, and then that's when they think Tai dies, and then they go back to the real world. So there's lots of just like jumping back and forth via these different portals, but it's nothing super major in regards to, it's this new type of portal. It's like, no, it's just still kind of the same type of portal. It's just how to, as the digital world kind of like advances in its own technology, in regards to the fact that, the real world advances in its own technology, the digital world also advances. So that makes some changes here and there. And then kind of finally, we have in Digimon Adventures, The Last Evolution. What ends up happening is at the beginning of it, they're having to deal with Parrotmon again. He's popped back up again, and Izzy is actually able to kind of like open these gates kind of whenever he needs to, for them to then send Parrotmon back. And then there's also the younger chosen children, so like Davis and Yoli and Ken and Cody, will use the digital world basically as like, and I went over this, I think, in like all of their videos, but I love it. It's like they basically use the digital world and the digital portals as literally a way of like having to bypass having to fly to other countries, because like, at the beginning of the movie, we see, or when we see Davis and Ken and Cody for the first time, they're in like this like restaurant in New York, and it's just like, Davis is like training to be a noodle person, make noodles and everything, and like Cody and Ken are like in like college or something like that, or like high school, late high school, college, whatever. And it's just like, they don't have money to be flying back and forth to America whenever they want, particularly to New York. But it's just like, no, they're not flying. They literally go from Japan into a digital portal, and then they then open up a different digital portal and then go into New York. I love that. Also, I accidentally skipped over this when I was talking about the gates that they use to pop back and forth throughout the course of season 2. So there's these different, like, they look like old-fashioned televisions, literally, that like sit around the digital world, or look like random computer monitors that are all over the digital world. And like they're able to, they pop from the real world through the computer in through the monitor, and then pop back out, and then like they go back through the same way. So I just kind of find that funny. It's just like just like zipping back and forth. But like, they just use that to like travel from like, okay, well, where do we want to go today? Let's go to New York. Okay. So just like go into the digital world from Japan, and then they go from the digital world through a portal that they open up that opens up in the United States. But I just find that so funny. And like they hop back and forth that way. Also throughout the course of that one as well, whenever the Eosmon attack Digidestined to, take their consciousness to put into the crystal world that Menoa has made, there's also portals that open up there. Like they come through the screen of the computer or the phones or whatever it is that the person was using that happens to have the computer, or happens to have like this, access to the internet. And of course, at various points in time, the Digidestins literally go digital, because they turn into data, and go onto the internet. Because Tai and Izzy and TK and Matt do the same thing in Digimon Last Evolution, because they have to go into the internet to go to try to fight Eosmon originally. And that doesn't go well. But so there's so many different portals that they've used to go back and forth. In other Digimon media, there's not nearly as much back and forth between the real world and the digital world, which I'll be going over at some point in time when I do Digimon Tamers and then Digimon Frontier, but those will be a little bit ways down the line. I might delve into a different anime at the beginning of this next year, but we'll see what happens. So that's what I have. The weekend, the couple of days before I recorded this one, I actually spent quite a bit of time baking cookies. Lots of cookies, and then I took them to work, and my coworkers were like, "Yay, cookies!" Yes, berry. I made berry cookies. For any of you that are from this channel, from the Teching 101 channel, because I made the berry cookies and sent him the recipe, watch the video. I made more. I made berry cookies. So that's what I have here. I thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a happy and safe holiday season. Bye. That's home, planet Earth. But I'm not sure that's where I am right now.